Every NFL general manager plays with fire, but Ryan Poles just poured gasoline over the entire Chicago Bears defense, struck a match, and handed the controls to a room full of unproven edge rushers, while the rest of the NFC North went out and spent hundreds of millions of dollars to buy guaranteed sacks. Halas Hall did something almost unthinkable. They went dead silent. Max Crosby? Never happened. Top-tier free agents? Passed by. Instead, Poles is betting his entire career, his quarterback's prime, and Chicago's playoff life on a terrifying high-wire gamble. He is running it back with Montez Sweat trapped on an island, trusting a second-year, fifth-round developmental project to save the pass rush. If this gamble works, Ryan Poles looks like a cap space genius who built a quiet monster. But if it fails, the Bears' defense will completely collapse from the inside out before Week 8. This is the story of the most dangerous executive gamble in modern Bears history, and why the math behind it might smash Chicago's season to pieces. To understand how high the stakes are right now, you have to rewind to the exact moment this past offseason began. Chicago was a franchise standing right on the precipice of something massive. The offense was rapidly transforming into an explosive, high-powered engine. The stadium was buzzing, and fans were hungry for a deep playoff run. But everyone knew the dirty little secret keeping defensive coaches up at night. The Bears were dead last in pass rush win rate. They were completely incapable of harassing opposing quarterbacks without sending extra blitzers. So, the fan base waited, the media waited, the entire city of Chicago held its breath, waiting for the blockbuster move that felt inevitable. When you looked at the blueprint of every modern Super Bowl contender, the template was simple. You pair your elite star on the edge with a second high-priced, terrifying monster on the opposite side. You pay the price, you surrender the draft capital, and you secure the quarterback hunters. Rumors swirled like a Midwestern blizzard. Blockbuster trade proposals floated across every major sports network, linking Chicago to elite, game-disrupting pass rushers like Max Crosby. Free agent splash lists had Chicago circled in red ink as the premier destination with cash to burn. The market was ripe, the need was glaring, and the timing was immaculate. Then the transaction wire opened, and Halas Hall hit complete, suffocating radio silence. Day one of free agency arrived, the big names signed elsewhere. Day two passed, the top-tier defensive ends signed massive multi-year deals in other divisions. Draft night came and went, and as the picks ticked by, position after position was called, but the premier edge defenders were left off Poles' board. It wasn't a clerical error. It wasn't that the Bears got outbid at the final second. It was a deliberate, calculated, and ice-cold choice by Ryan Poles to walk away from the table. Inside the executive offices, Poles made a decision that sent shockwaves through the building. Instead of spending $50 million or burning first-round picks to go out and buy a proven sack artist, he looked at his roster, slammed the vault shut, and chose to stand pat. He decided to bet everything on internal development, rotation fixes, and the hope that the talent already in the room could magically step up and bridge a massive multi-sack gap. In the ultra-competitive landscape of the NFL, that isn't just an unconventional strategy, it's an executive tightrope walk over an open volcano. General managers get fired for missing on quarterback contracts, but they get exposed when their front four can't get to the passer on 3rd and 8. By refusing to sign a certified perimeter weapon, Ryan Poles painted a massive target on his own chest. If this defense fails to generate pressure, there is no coordinator to blame, no scheme to hide behind, and no external scapegoat. Every single dropped interception, every third down conversion given up, and every clean pocket opposing quarterbacks enjoy will land directly on the general manager's desk. Poles took a championship-caliber roster window and hitched it to a low-cost, high-risk defensive front. The silence out of Halas Hall was deafening. But what comes next in Act 2 is the brutal, undeniable mathematical reality of leaving Montez Sweat stranded alone on an island. To understand the sheer magnitude of Ryan Poles' gamble, you have to look past the front office soundbites and dive straight into the film room. When you turn on the tape from 2025, one brutal, recurring image jumps off the screen on almost every third down. Montez Sweat getting swarmed by an avalanche of blocking schemes, completely alone on an island. When Chicago traded for Sweat, they paid him like a premier, game-altering cornerstone defensive end. And for long stretches, Sweat played like one. He showed off elite bend, explosive initial get-off, and the relentless motor required to drag down NFL quarterbacks. But football is a cold, uncompromising, mathematical equation. When an offensive coordinator prepares to face the Chicago Bears, their game plan isn't complicated. They open the playbook, circle number 98 in bright red marker, and commit every single protection resource toward keeping him off their quarterback. Throughout the 2025 season, Sweat was subjected to a gauntlet of extra attention. Right tackles didn't just line up against him one-on-one, they had tight ends chipping him on their way out to pass routes. Running backs lined up in the backfield with explicit instructions to slide over and slam into his ribs at the snap. Guards actively cheated towards Sweat's side, creating a thick wall of double teams that forced him to navigate two 300-pound men on almost every dropback. Why could opposing teams afford to commit two, sometimes three blockers to neutralize one man? Because on the opposite edge, Chicago offered no terrifying counterpunch. In modern professional football, pass rushing relies entirely on a delicate ecosystem of mutual destruction. Great edge rushing duos operate like a pair of deadly blades. When one side collapses the pocket, the quarterback is forced to step up or flush laterally, running directly into the waiting arms of the other. But when you only have one elite edge threat, that ecosystem breaks down. Opposing offenses can completely tilt their pass protection to one side of the field without ever worrying about getting burned by the weak side. Because of this structural deficiency, Chicago's overall pass rush win rate hovered near the bottom of the entire league. Sweat was forced to take on an absurd workload, logging massive snap totals week after week while fighting through relentless physical punishment. His time to pressure expanded not because his talent regressed, but because no human being can consistently beat two NFL offensive linemen before a quarterback gets rid of the football in 2.5 seconds. By the fourth quarter of tight, high-stakes division games, you could physically see the toll. Aghast, battered Montez Sweat, fighting through double teams while opposing quarterbacks sat comfortably in clean pockets, picking apart the secondary. And that brings us to the terrifying reality that keeps the coaching staff up at night, the complete lack of a safety net. The mathematical math governing this defense is utterly unforgiving. If Montez Sweat suffers an ankle sprain, a pulled hamstring, or simply wears down under the crushing weight of another 800-snap season, Chicago's edge rush doesn't just regress, it disappears entirely. The Bears' front four transforms from a struggling unit into a completely non-existent threat. Without Sweat drawing the eyes of the offensive coordinator, opposing quarterbacks will have all day to set their feet, survey the field, and slice Chicago's defense to pieces. Ryan Poles isn't just betting that his internal guys can step up. He is betting that Montez Sweat can play like an immortal superhero, staying 100% healthy while absorbing double teams on every single snap. It is an unbelievable amount of pressure to place on one man's shoulders, and it sets up the pivotal question that will define Chicago's entire year. Can anyone else on this defensive line step out of the shadows and save Montez Sweat before it's too late? If Ryan Poles' refuse to spend strategy isn't just reckless negligence, then it has to be powered by a quiet, supreme confidence in the talent already sitting inside his own building. He didn't leave Montez Sweat on an island by accident. He did it because he believes the answers to Chicago's pass rush crisis are already wearing Bears uniforms. He is placing the full, immense weight of this franchise's championship ambitions on the shoulders of two young defensive stars and a high-profile veteran brought in to ignite them from the inside. The first cornerstone of Poles' internal salvation effort is sitting right in the heart of the trenches. Gervon Dexter Sr. When Dexter entered the league, he was viewed as a raw, physically gifted disruptor with explosive athletic traits but unrefined technique. Fast forward through his development, and Dexter has transformed into a foundational force inside. He possesses rare, violent torque at the point of attack, able to physically drive 290-pound guards into the lap of the quarterback. But interior pressure in the NFL isn't just about raw power, it's about creating push that collapses the pocket from the front, forcing quarterbacks to panic, throw off their back foot, or scramble directly into the edge. To unleash Dexter's full potential, Poles brought in a seasoned, battle-tested wrecking ball in veteran arrival Grady Jarrett. Jarrett brings a veteran's surgical understanding of leverage and hands. Playing alongside a proven interior disruptor like Jarrett changes the geometry of the entire line. Offenses can no longer slide extra protection solely to Montez Sweat, because doing so leaves Dexter and Jarrett in single coverage, isolated mismatches inside. If the interior duo can reliably collapse the B-gaps and flush the quarterback out of his rhythm, they effectively turn Montez Sweat's island into a deadly closing trap. Yet as crucial as interior push is, interior pressure alone doesn't finish plays if the opposite perimeter remains soft. That brings us to the centerpiece of Poles' massive gamble, the young man charged with providing the ultimate answer on the outside, Austin Booker. Drafted in the 5th round out of Kansas, Booker arrived in Chicago as a classic high-upside developmental edge defender. He was lean, lightning fast, and possessing a long, flexed frame with unpolished pass rush moves. Early in his rookie campaign, he was a rotational project, taking limited snaps while absorbing the sheer speed and violence of the professional game. But as the snaps accumulated and the tape rolled on, Booker started flashing the exact traits that make front office executives drool. By the late stretches of the season, Booker wasn't just surviving on the field, he was creating pure chaos. Film edits began capturing his lightning-quick first step, a signature hesitation stab move, and an uncanny ability to bend around the corner without losing speed. When given clear passing downs, Booker showed an explosive natural knack for hunting the football, generating pressures that didn't always show up on the box score, but fundamentally altered opposing drives. He showed the kind of raw, unteachable twitch that turns late-round flyers into upper-tier starters. Now, Ryan Poles is taking that promise and turning it into a mandatory requirement. He isn't asking Austin Booker to just be a solid 12-snap-per-game rotational player anymore. He is asking him to step directly into the spotlight as a primary starter opposite Montez Sweat and command the respect of every offensive coordinator in the league. This is where the entire narrative pivots on a razor's edge. Is Austin Booker actually ready to make the massive, staggering leap from a flashes of brilliance developmental player into a dominant, double-digit sack perimeter defender? In the NFL, the gap between a rotational rusher and a double-digit sack artist is a wide canyon littered with failed prospects. It requires converting raw speed into disciplined power, processing offensive tackles' sets in real time, and sustaining high-end production over an arduous 17-game season. If Booker is merely average, the double teams stay pinned on Sweat, the pocket stays clean, and Chicago's defensive engine stalls out. But if Booker's late-season flashes were the prologue to a massive breakout, Poles' silence in free agency will look like the ultimate scout's masterclass. Yet even if Booker has the talent, he can't do it in a vacuum. That leads directly into Act 4, how new defensive coordinator Dennis Allen plans to manufacture fire out of thin air through scheme design. When talent alone leaves a gaping hole on the edge, a defense has to rely on pure, cold, tactical intellect. Enter new defensive coordinator Dennis Allen. If Ryan Poles' gamble is the fuel for this high-stakes season, Allen's playbook is the spark ignited to make sure the entire machine doesn't blow up in their faces. Throughout his career, Allen has built a reputation as one of the league's premier defensive architects, a master chess player who specializes in solving one specific agonizing problem: how to manufacture elite pass rush pressure without relying on a pair of $90 million edge rushers. To understand what Allen brings to Chicago, you have to look at his blueprint. Dennis Allen doesn't sit back and wait for a four-man rush to win clean off the line of scrimmage. He creates chaos by design. His entire defensive philosophy is built around illusion, pre-snap confusion, and aggressive, calculated pressure packages that force offensive lines to make split-second mistakes. He hides deficiencies not by protecting his players, but by attacking the opponent's brain. Turn on the tape from Allen's previous defenses, and you immediately see the tactical nightmare he presents to opposing quarterbacks. It starts with alignment. Allen will pack 6 or 7 defenders right on the line of scrimmage in a menacing, mugged look front, showing blitz on almost every single third down snap. The quarterback has to make an immediate pre-snap protection call, guessing which 4 or 5 pass rushers are actually coming and who is dropping into coverage. At the snap, the trap springs. Allen unleashes delayed linebacker stunts and disguised safety blitzes coming from unexpected angles. A middle linebacker will feign a drop into coverage, wait for the center and guard to slide their protection away, and then rocket through a wide-open gap a fraction of a second later. An edge rusher will crash hard inside, picking off 2 offensive linemen and looping an unblocked safety around the outside perimeter. It is chaotic, high-intensity, pressure manufacturing football specifically engineered to generate sacks out of scheme rather than raw individual edge talent. This is where the turning point of Chicago's entire defensive scheme takes shape. Dennis Allen's system doesn't ask Austin Booker or the rotational edge rushers to win pure one-on-one battles all day long. Instead, it relies on a synchronized, heavy-hitting relationship between the interior line and the scheme mechanics. The entire system relies on an unrelenting interior engine powered by Gervon, Dexter Sr. and Grady Jarrett. When Allen dials up his delayed stunts and overload blitzes, the interior push becomes the absolute tip of the spear. Dexter and Jarrett are charged with blowing up the B-gaps and driving the center of the pocket straight backwards into the quarterback's face. If the interior guards are forced to absorb that immense power, they can't slide out to help the tackles. Suddenly, the math flips. A quarterback can no longer simply step up into a clean pocket to escape an edge rusher. With Dexter and Jarrett collapsing the front of the pocket and Allen's blitzers plugging up the escape lanes, the quarterback is trapped in a shrinking circle. His only option is to flush laterally toward the perimeter, running directly into the path of a waiting, relentless Montez Sweat, or into the closing speed of an unblocked loop from Booker. By utilizing this tactical layout, Allen transforms the weakness of Chicago's front four into a dangerous guessing game. He shields his raw perimeter rushers by keeping offensive lines off balance, ensuring that even if an edge rusher lacks top-tier pass rush moves, the scheme will manufacture free lanes straight to the ball carrier. It is an aggressive, high-risk, high-reward tactical approach that demands absolute discipline from all 11 men on the field. If one linebacker misses his blitz landmark or one secondary player blows a coverage assignment while the front brings heat, the entire defense gets exposed for a massive, game-changing chunk play. Dennis Allen isn't just coordinating a defense, he is operating a high-speed engine with zero room for error. And as we transition into Act 5, that brings us to the final, unavoidable verdict hanging over Halas Hall. So here we stand, staring directly into the terrifying culmination of Ryan Poles' grand experiment. Every NFL offseason is built on promises, projections, and executive hubris. But few general managers in recent memory have stepped out onto a wire quite as thin or suspended quite as high as the one Poles spun in the quiet halls of Chicago. He took a championship contending window, looked at the most violent, premium, and non-negotiable position on the defensive side of the ball, and decided that doing almost nothing was the smartest move available. When you weigh the entire gambit from top to bottom, the stark duality of this decision becomes almost overwhelming. On one side of the coin lies the dream scenario, the timeline Ryan Poles envisions every time he closes his eyes. In this reality, Austin Booker takes the raw electric flashes from the end of his sophomore campaign and explodes into a full-blown edge predator. Gervon, Dexter Sr. and Grady Jarrett turn the interior into an unnavigable brick wall, forcing guards backwards and systematically flushing terrified quarterbacks into the path of a pristine, dominant Montez Sweat. Dennis Allen's blitz packages masquerade over every weak spot, manufacturing pressure out of chaos and leaving opposing offensive coordinators completely baffled. If that reality comes to fruition, Ryan Poles will walk away looking like a visionary genius. He will have preserved tens of millions in salary cap space, protected his high-value draft picks, and built a silent, homegrown pass rush monster without burning the franchise's financial future. He will be lauded as the executive who outsmarted a reactionary league. But then there is the dark side of the coin, the reality that keeps coaches staring blankly at the film room ceiling at 3 a.m. If Austin Booker plateaus under the suffocating physical grind of being a full-time NFL starter, the weak side edge remains an open avenue. If double teams continue to wear down Montez Sweat until his speed ticks down half a second, the entire exterior collapses. And if Dennis Allen's blitzing schemes get exposed or picked apart by elite, pre-snap processing quarterbacks, there is no backup plan waiting in the wings. In the modern NFC North, you cannot fake a pass rush. You cannot cover up a barren defensive front when you are forced to go to war against elite offensive lines and quick release passes. If this front four fails to get home on third down, the domino effect will be immediate and catastrophic. The secondary will be hung out to dry, forced to cover for 4, 5, 6 agonizing seconds. The defense as a whole will bend until it violently snaps, blowing close games and dragging down the momentum of an explosive offense. By refusing to draft or sign a big-name edge rusher, Poles stripped away every single layer of administrative cover. There is no scapegoat. There is no middle ground. As the countdown ticks down to Week 1, the entire NFL world is watching Halas Hall with bated breath. The blueprint is set, the roster is locked, and the gamble is officially live. Ryan Poles has placed his career, his legacy, and the immediate future of the Chicago Bears directly on the line. Did he craft a silent, low-cost defensive juggernaut that will terrorize the league for years to come? Or did he just sabotage Chicago's championship dreams before the very first kickoff? The answer will be written in blood, sweat, and sacks, and the clock is officially running out.